Welcome to the first edition of Say What TAT Talks, where we're going to spill some tea on how certain groups have been targeted by the tobacco industry. And I'm joined here today by Kayla and Kalaiha. How are y'all doing today?
I'm doing great, Michelle. I'm just really excited to get into this topic today.
And I'm doing pretty good. I just had coffee right before this, so I've got some energy in me.
Speaking of coffee, what's your favorite way to get caffeine? Do you like soda, tea, or coffee?
Well, I know we're about to have tea right now, but I really like coffee because I can really sweeten it up, and I can have, I guess I can have coffee with a side of sugar. Or how's the saying? Sugar with a side of coffee?
Sugar with the side of coffee.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you because I don't really like the taste of coffee, but when you put a lot of sugar in it, then it gets really good.
I agree.
How about you, Kalaiha?
Personally, I prefer not iced coffee. Well, yeah, iced coffee is pretty good, but it's not as good as iced tea because I don't really like hot drinks, and coffee, it's just not really for me.
Why do you not like hot drinks so much?
Because I'm really accident prone, so anytime I try to drink a hot drink, I either burn my tongue or waste it all over me.
That's too funny. But this year, we've been traveling a lot to in-person or virtual summits, but at these virtual summits and in-person summits that we go to, we really talk about tobacco prevention, but there's a common theme that I've realized throughout all of these presentations, and that's that big tobacco really targets certain groups, minorities, genders, all of this by using specific tactics for each one of them. And I think that's something I really want to get into today to kind of hear your perspective on what you've seen in your community or what you've seen in your own experiences. But I know we're all youth right now, and Texas Say What really focuses on preventing tobacco use in youth to create that tobacco-free vision, to create that first tobacco-free generation. But what's one thing that you've seen in your community that Big Tobacco does to really promote their products towards the youth?
Yeah, that's a really good question, but it's also both hard and easy to answer at the same time. You know, it's hard to pinpoint just one because there's so many ways that big tobacco targets the youth. I mean, you see it everywhere, and social media is so prominent nowadays, right? Everybody has social media in one way or another. And it's always on TikTok or YouTube or Reels on Instagram or Twitter. And I know on TikTok, I'm always scrolling, right? So you're bound to run into something eventually. So that's just something that I've noticed.
It's a lot of free advertisement.
Yeah.
Kalaiha, have you seen any of this on your TikTok or anything like that?
I mean, yeah, have you guys ever heard that song, Where's My Jewel?
No.
Well, it was like really, really popular back when I was in middle school. It was on everybody's For You page. You'd just be scrolling and there'd be this girl screaming, "Where's my jewel?" over and over again.
Where's my jewel? Oh my god. Where's my jewel?
And since it was really catchy, it would get in our heads and some people would sing it. I even like hummed it a couple of times. It was just stuck in my brain. And since it was so repetitive, a lot of people looked up what Juul was and got introduced to the products.
Right. And I think when they look things up, they get introduced in the wrong way with a lot of misleading information. So that's one of the reasons I really do think it's so important to educate the youth on all of their marketing strategies and on the truth about tobacco. But something else I've personally seen are all of the bright advertisements or catchy designs or even like the flavors that they target towards youth specifically, because I think that all of that leads to youth really being misled about the dangers of tobacco. But tobacco companies don't really even stop at targeting youth. I know they also target women. And again, we're all women sitting down right now. So have you all seen how Big Tobacco has targeted either yourselves or family, friends, peers, specifically just because of your gender?
Personally, my great-grandmother, she started smoking back in 1955 when she was 14 years old. She see like ads like the ones with Virginia Slims that told her she'd be more beautiful or superior to men if she smoked those products. And it was way easier for her to be introduced to it because she was 10 times more likely to see these ads in her African American neighborhood. And her addiction caused her to lose a lot of quality time with me and my mom. Because when my mom was pregnant with me, she told my grandmother that she wouldn't be coming around as much anymore, and that when I was born, she wouldn't bring me over there because of the harm that tobacco can do to children and pregnant women or just everyone. But fortunately, she ended up quitting, so we got to form that relationship. But that's not the same for everybody. Some people that are addicted to these products lose valuable time with their families or with their careers.
That's very true. I think a lot of people don't know about how much tobacco can take away from you.
Definitely. And I just want to say I'm really glad that your grandma was able to quit. That must have been really great news for you and your family. But it's really unfortunate that they were able to get her into smoking in the first place, especially at such a young age, you know? But I think that's something that big tobacco does so well throughout time, even going back to the 1940s, 1950s, right? When your grandma started smoking, they use those beauty standards, trying to make women feel like the skinnier, like the tobacco product is going to elevate anything in some way. You know, they really use those beauty standards, and that's something that just hasn't stopped. Like nowadays, we see e-cigarettes as a more prominent form of nicotine and tobacco use in youth, right? But they're still targeting women by making those e-cigarettes very sleek, or even marketing them like makeup products like lipstick or mascara or eyeliner.
Yeah, I've definitely seen like the elf bars that really mimic a lot of the same advertisements, or even just the brand name that Elf Cosmetics uses. And I think that's really upsetting that they just target these young girls or women that are using the makeup products by mimicking all those advertisements or using those fun colors to target the women particularly. But I know, Kalaiha, I realized that when you were talking about your grandmother or great grandmother, I'm sorry, you were saying that she was 10 times more likely to see the advertisements because she was in an African American community. Do you want to expand a little bit more on that?
Based on research, you are more likely to see these tobacco ads in African American communities rather than white or other minority communities. But these big tobacco companies do not stop there. Juul even went into a black community and funded an after-school program that had predominantly black participants so they could have access and influence on these black youth.
When you think about these after school programs, I think it's important to realize that these are elementary school students. So these are like 8, 9-year-olds that are already being hooked on tobacco and already hooked on their products and being harmed at such a young age. And in the news recently, I've really seen a lot on the menthol ban and how it's inherently racist. Do you want to expand more on that or why people think it's racist?
Yeah, big tobacco has done a really good job at influencing the black community into believing that menthol cigarettes is like their thing. They associate that with themselves. And they even convinced us that this flavor ban, especially on the menthol cigarettes, was inherently racist and unfairly targeted us. But I think the real racist thing is that tobacco industries have been targeting us with their products and profiting off the death of black people, because the flavor ban is really helping us, keeping us healthy and away from these products.
So it's really not inherently racist. They just twisted things yet again. And I've seen a lot of similar things happening in the Hispanic or Latino community. And Kayla, I know you're from El Paso, and as am I, and it's predominantly Hispanic. So what have you seen in our community that really showcases how big tobacco targets that minority group specifically?
Yeah, growing up, born and raised in El Paso, you know, we're a border town with Mexico. So there's a lot of, one thing that I've noticed that's really strong in our community is family. And so family, you know, you trust your family, right? You're there for your family. You take after your family. And another thing that's kind of an extension of that is trust. And we put trust into brands too. So whether that be like cleaning products or food products or anything like that, we stick to one brand, right? Like my grandma, if we don't find the specific brand of tortillas at the grocery store,
There's no tortillas.
we are not getting tortillas unless she makes them or we find those tortillas in the store, right? And that's one thing I have to give Big Tobacco credit for. They know how to use those things, those values against us. They know that once they market one thing super strongly to us and it, I guess, works out, that's the brand that they have. They've hooked one generation on it, and they've probably hooked several generations on that as well. And that's just really unfortunate to me.
Right. They build brand loyalty for certain cigarette brands and really promote their products to Hispanic families as well. I know my family, like, there's a lot of cousins at family gatherings that are younger than me or really small. But obviously, when they see older generations or maybe parents or grandparents smoking certain cigarettes or looking older because they're smoking, they're going to be more likely to want to mimic that when they're older because they really want to grow up to be like those role models that they're looking at. So I find it so infuriating that tobacco companies really use family and something so like loving, like how much you love your family to target that certain group or to market their products at you, even though it's really going to end up harming you in the future.
Definitely.
But other than Hispanic community or in total, like with the Hispanic community and the Black and African American community and even women and all of this that we're talking about, something that I've really seen is how similar it is. But I think Big Tobacco does a really good job at hiding their tactics and hiding how similar tactics are used on different groups. So do you guys think that their tactics are something that people know about or are they more hidden?
Like you said, I think they do a really good job at trying to hide behind all these other things, like trying to say that they're good guys, like funding HBCUs and scholarships and all of that, trying to say, oh, we're here to help your community, we're here to push you guys forward, when in reality, they're the ones killing us.
I have a question real quick. What does HBU stand for?
HBCU, it's
HBCU.
a historically Black college or university.
Gotcha. All right.
Right. And alongside funding those historically Black college or universities, they also, I know, fund a lot of scholarships for Hispanic students. Kayla, have you had any experience with that?
Definitely. As somebody who grew up in a lower income household, scholarships were how I relied to pay for college. And it's very upsetting to me that Big Tobacco also knows that about our community, going back to family, that drive to give back to your family by going to college, getting a better future. And Big Tobacco still knows that and wants to ruin it, but they still put in money to offer scholarships to Hispanic youth. And it's just another way that they hide those tactics from us.
Right. They're really deceiving and try to portray themselves as good when really their product itself is killing a lot of people, as I know Kalaiha mentioned. And I think in general, they really try to promote a lot of division and they try to hide that they use those similar tactics so that we don't unite. Because I think it's so important for all groups, minorities and genders to really unite with this fight against tobacco, because by fighting for each other or for fighting for the end of tobacco prevention, we can really actually make an impact and create that tobacco-free vision that we're really looking at doing. So I really appreciate y'all sitting down and talking throughout this whole topic and giving your own input. So thank you so much for being here.
Definitely. And that's part of why we sit down and do this, so that we can have conversations like these and hopefully spark them up for other people as well.
We just want to give any information that we can to protect the people, like our little cousins and our younger siblings.
To create that tobacco-free vision.
Yeah, of course.